Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special World Interiors Day edition of the Glass Academy Webinars 2026 in association with Ethos Empowers. As part of our larger theme, Envisioning India at 2047, Building the Next Century of Progress, we continue to explore how architecture, materials, technology, and human experience are collectively shaping the future of our built environments. And today, that conversation becomes especially relevant within the world of interiors. With people now spending nearly 90% of their time indoors, interior spaces have become far more than functional environments. They influence how we live, how we work, interact, rest, and emotionally connect with the world around us. And as lifestyles continue to evolve, interior design today is no longer about just aesthetics. It is increasingly about how design, materials, systems, technology, and human behavior come together to shape meaningful experiences. And this idea resonates strongly with this year's World Interiors Day theme, balancing nature, culture, and technology, a theme that feels particularly significant in today's rapidly transforming world, where innovation is advancing faster than ever, while our need for emotional comfort, cultural connection, and human centered spaces continues to grow. And within this larger shift, glass has emerged as one of the defining materials of contemporary interiors, influencing not just transparency, but also light, privacy, flexibility, reflection, acoustics, and the relationship between people and spaces. Historically, too, glass has existed at the intersection of culture and innovation. In fact, Saint-Gobain itself was founded in 1665 under King Louis XIV to produce glass for the Palace of Versailles, including the celebrated Hall of Mirrors, a reminder that glass has long played a role in transforming the way spaces are experienced through light, reflection, and spatial perception. And so, today's session, titled Beyond Transparency, Glass in the Future of Interior Experiences, aims to explore exactly that intersection of interiors, materiality, technology, and human experience. To unpack these ideas, we are joined by an esteemed panel representing architecture, interior design, and glass technology. First, we have architect Maitri Shah, the founder of MS Studio, Bengaluru, a practice known for creating refined, detail driven interiors that balance warmth, material sensitivity, and spatial clarity. Her work often explores how light, transparency, and layering can shape emotional experiences within spaces while maintaining functionality and elegance. We are joined also by Ms. Sapna Aggarwal, the creative director of ANSA Architecture and Interior Design Consultancy, Delhi, with over 2 decades of experience across residential, commercial, and builder projects. An award winning designer, she is also a speaker, mentor, and author known for creating thoughtful, functional, and impactful spaces. And representing the material and technology perspective, we have Mr. Udit Sood, who is the regional manager at Saint-Gobain and brings extensive expertise in glass systems and interior applications. His understanding of high performance glazing, privacy solutions, and evolving interior technologies offers valuable insight into how glass is shaping the future of spatial design. We are delighted to have all of you with us today, and we look forward to a very insightful conversation. So, my first question is for all of you all. You can take turns answering. So, over the last few years, interiors have become far more lifestyle driven than before. Beyond aesthetics, people today expect spaces to support well being, flexibility, work, leisure, and emotional comfort simultaneously. What do you think has been the biggest shift in how people experience interiors today?
I think the biggest shift is definitely that the focus is shifted towards holistic living, where people's priorities have changed, and no longer people are looking for just spaces which are aesthetically designed, but they're looking for a sanctuary which adapts to their lifestyle. And it's about creating an ecosystem that nurtures physical and mental well being, and it helps to boost productivity and foster communication. And also, the lines between work, leisure, and self care are blurring, and the houses are evolving to accommodate all of these things. It's also about crafting an environment that matches to their vibe and space. Yeah.
I think Maitri has put it very correctly. I would totally agree to every word that she has said. I think the pandemic just accelerated this transformation because people began spending more time in their homes and they became more deeply aware of how the spaces would affect their mood, probably their productivity, even their relationships, and even mental well being. So I feel what Maitri has put word by word is very correct. The interiors have started becoming a little more human centric and not really trend centric.
Yeah, I believe, I guess both of them have summed up in the right way. Pandemic actually has driven this entire market towards more human centric. From a product and from the material point of view, a lot of products. It was always there, but like pots or some of the other products have started gradually getting into the office spaces much more because everyone wants to give their employees this more of a feeling that it's more welcoming, right? And even and that trend continues even now. So yeah, it's more human centric, and we have seen even from the material point of view that a lot of material has been moving into that direction.
Yeah. Miss Sapna, you had mentioned about how people staying indoors during COVID, they have understood their own needs when it comes to understanding interiors. So you have worked so closely with users across residential and lifestyle projects. What are some behavioral or emotional needs that clients often struggle to express, but which strongly influence interior design decisions?
With Rebecca, truly, I think over the decades, I've observed that clients rarely express their real emotional needs. They would be talking about aesthetics, maybe layouts, luxury, functionality, but truly, what they're fully, truly seeking is that emotional security, maybe that mental calmness, maybe just belongingness, maybe just the ease of living. So, uh, so for example, if a client says they want a little more of open space, maybe emotionally they're seeking a little more of freedom from stress, or maybe they're just, you know, it's a sense of mental lightness to them. Someone who's asking maybe for warm light or soft textures may genuinely be craving only for comfort and emotional grounding. Maybe after long hours of work, they just want that cozy zone. So, as designers, I feel it's not just about understanding what you're saying word by word, but also reading in between the lines, understanding the energy patterns, the family dynamics, their habits, and most importantly, I think the unspoken anxieties that they go through. Because that is when we are not making interiors which is just visually good, but it is also supporting their well-being, their relationship, and their everyday living. So that I think is the right definition of what the designer has to do than what we actually do.
True, ma'am, very true. My next question is to architect Maitri. Ma'am, your work reflects lightness and spatial calmness. And in fast-paced urban lifestyles today, how do you create interiors that feel emotionally grounding without becoming visually overwhelming?
I believe that it's very important to have an emotional balance when you're designing, and that can be brought in through multiple and various ways, mainly through harmony they need to feel like the space is harmonious, and it should calm them down. And this can be achieved by amalgamation of a lot of things, like using of natural neutral color palettes along with textures, so that you have certain highlight, you can create certain moods for them. And also you can help them with connecting the indoor and outdoor spaces, so you feel connected to the outdoor while still remaining indoors, which is a very good design element you can bring in. And then helping with the use of accurate lighting. So when you have more of natural lighting coming into the building, it helps a person mentally to be connected to the outside world. And it also helps the designer to curate spaces catered to the client itself, where for example you can give skylights etc for designing, so it helps them feel that they are still present in the physical world. And also you can bring in a lot of natural lighting through providing different facade designs which help in maximizing their presence to the outer world. Yeah.
True, ma'am. True. Thank you. Mr. Udit, you had mentioned a bit about advancement in technology, and especially in interiors. Glass today exists in far more ways than people often realize, from mirrors to lacquered finishes to writable surfaces, performance glazing, etc. So, what are some of the newer or the lesser known ways glass and glass products are being integrated into interior environments today? And do you think that this evolution is changing how both designers and clients perceive interior spaces?
See, with time, of course, glass less from a filler and more from a functionality point of view has came into the picture. Right, initially, we were all using glasses in our old or contemporary houses where it was typically we were using annealed glass. But then, as the industry progressed, we got into various processes around the glass, and from toughening and then probably using some kind of a lamination and for different kind of purposes. And then there comes this lacquered glass, which has this writability, and that got really popular inside commercial spaces. And now as the time growing, a lot of even safety products, for example, a lot of these let's say large buildings where you have this facade railings, right? And then so sometimes they use with balustrade or without balustrade, but largely meant for safety purpose. So they're very high end safety glasses, what we call the sentry glasses or DG41 glasses. That's a new case. Then even in commercial interiors, typically we were using annealed or a toughened glass, but with time people have started using laminated glasses, even acoustical laminated glasses, which is much less popularly known, but have much more advantage in terms of making the entire space much more acoustically comfortable. And then even a combi and then using a right kind of a system around it to perform maybe double glazing or multiple glazings, so that itself will have its own acoustic comfort. So these are some of the latest places where glass has grown into. There are even more places where glass is also used as display spaces, specifically in automobiles and some of the other places we have started seeing it. And in commercial interiors also people have at least started talking about it. So there are various places where this material is now taking shape and getting into our regular office day-to-day life, and we are hopeful that it'll take its correct place. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Speaking of materials, Sapna ma'am, materials today are expected to do so much more than just look good. So, when selecting materials for interiors, how do you balance aesthetics with durability, maintenance, tactile comfort, and long-term user experience?
First thing, I think Maitri had rightly talked about the effect of lighting in the buildings. And Uditji, I think you're very right. I think designers are now being able to explore glass more creatively because of the innovation and the technology that you guys have got. And the performance has significantly expanded its possibilities for sure. So that's really rightly said. And coming back to you, Rebecca, I think today material just cannot be selected only because they look luxurious in photograph or just in renders. I think the real success of material is seen after the years of usage. That means how do we maintain, how does it talk about maintenance, the touch, maybe how does it respond to the climate and the daily interaction with the material. So a beautiful material may just become very stressful to maintain eventually, because and then somehow if the beautiful material becomes very, very stressful to maintain, eventually it just stops contributing to the positivity of the experience. There is no longer anything positive about that material now. It's just adding burden and work. So I think, as you rightly said, we have to evaluate multiple layers together, not just the visual appeal. There has to be durability, tactile comfort, maintenance requirements, their aging behavior. Also, I think their lifestyle suitability. It's not necessary that every material can suit every lifestyle. I think personally, for me, luxury is not about excess anymore. I think it's more about comfort, about longevity, about that emotional warmth, about more about effortless living. I think the more I'm working closely with the people, the more I'm understanding they don't want too much. They just want simple things. It's simplicity is the new now. And yes, glass has evolved tremendously over the interior language today, as I initially said also. I think earlier, as Uditji said, it was majorly used for window material or maybe just one transparent divider. But now it has become a very strong and a very functional design element. We are increasingly seeing glass also integrated in furniture detailings, partitions, even wardrobes for that matter. Lighting, Murano has made it so big. Shelving system, as Uditji had mentioned. And then different panels like the textured panels, the opaque panels, even reflective layering. I think he's already mentioned all the possibilities glass can go into. And somehow glass is very exciting because of its versatility. It's just a beautiful material to use. It can become open and close. It can have a soft feel. It can become sophisticated. It can either reflect light or just not do that. It can add any drama that I want. It can add the depth. So that I think is what makes glass really exciting to work with.
Oh, ma'am, and also I'm curious to know, do you also see glass increasingly becoming a part of furniture language and decorative layering with interiors today?
Yes, 100%. I think glass has actually treaded a journey from just partitions to important parts of furniture details. I think we are also using a lot of furniture which is detailed with glass. And then wardrobes that I have already mentioned. It's an immense part of the wardrobes. Lighting obviously is all glass. Shelving system is all glass. So glass is taking over a lot of materials right now.
Yes, ma'am. Um, Architect Maitri, you had touched on the topic of light before, and even Sapna ma'am has just mentioned. So, light has become one of the strongest defining elements in contemporary interiors. How do reflections, transparency, and layered materials influence the atmosphere and emotional perception of a space?
So reflection, basically, it's light bouncing around. So it helps to create a depth where you can see stuff. When you have glass, for example, it's transparent. So the visual barrier is not there. It's increased. So you're seeing a multifold of space over there. And using mirrors and glass in interiors helps with this. And because glass is a transparent material, it helps to blur the boundaries, and it helps you to connect with the like how initial olden days we used to use glass only for windows, but now we're using it as partition systems. So it also helps you to have the sense of indoor outdoor feel, and it helps to bring in a lot of natural lighting. Glass wall screens are also being used nowadays, which is also evolved material. So you get glass blocks, you get glass bricks nowadays. So all of these innovations are helping us to include transparency into design, and also layered materials, as Sapna ma'am had mentioned, that now we're using glass in multiple aspects of our life. Even for a table, for example, a table, it can be designed. And glass was initially considered to be a fragile, brittle material and very rigid structure. But now glass has evolved so much that we can even make curved furnitures out of glass. For For example, there are a lot of table designs coming up. Facades are being designed with curved glass, and it's also become a part of structures. So before we would use it only as like a partition system, but now it can be used as a structural system also. So it has evolved a lot over time, and it is helping designers also to explore multiple options of what design can achieve.
Yes, ma'am. Very true what you said and very well explained. Mr. Udit, my next question is for you. Today's interiors increasingly demand flexibility, spaces that can transform, divide, open up, and adapt throughout the day. So, how are glass systems like movable partitions, sliding panels, acoustic glazing, and smart glass responding to this shift?
See, one glass inherently with the advent of technology has become very flexible. You talk about smart glass. I guess Ms. Sapna was also talking about smart glass sometime earlier. Smart glass is where where you can switch it into opacity and transparency various levels. So that itself will give a lot of flexibility to a customer while they are trying to, or a user while they're trying to use it. So one glass itself is bringing a lot of flexibility. Then Saint-Gobain, and at Saint-Gobain we are building a lot of systems around it. And as you rightly said, sliding folding systems or telescoping sliding systems or bifolding systems. A lot of these systems are highly modular in nature and highly flexible in nature. It allows an end user to modulate the entire space, as per them. I'll go little background. Okay, in fact, the partition system which we're using it from last few years now, entirely it's demountable. That means the entire systems can be demounted, and you can use it in a whole together a different place when you don't want it. So that gives an end user a lot of flexibility. Today I can have a 50 people space, and tomorrow I can make it a 20 people space, or a 80 or 100 people space within the same larger space I have. So that's the kind of a stage the glass and the system around it have reached, okay, with while giving a lot of flexibility from a system and from a glass point of view. And it's ever increasing. Okay, in fact, now we are getting into glasses which are laminated, and you may not toughen it because toughening will make it slightly less modular in nature, but now you're using annealed and laminated, which is going to still make it safer to use, but then give you the flexibility to change in shapes and sizes later. So that adds an even more flexibility. At Saint-Gobain, we have even some of those systems which can even interchange the glass with different kind of glasses with the same system. For example, today if I'm using a toughened laminate glass, or any other glass, tomorrow I can put lacquered glass or even a different thickness glass. So that kind of systems are evolving. Market is also evolving as we are seeing. Globally, there's a lot of supply side shocks or demand side shocks keeps coming, whether it was COVID or whether now we're talking about West Asia issues. We are seeing that the end user needs a lot of flexibility. It always does, but now it's high time that people need more and more flexibility, and that is where these systems become really more useful, because it gives end user that flexibility to move around, and keeps their controls in check, if you can say. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. It's very true.
I think
Uh,
Udit has said it so rightly, because flexibility is becoming an essential. It's not an option. With the houses decreasing, flexibility is an essential now.
True, ma'am. Yes, very true. And my next question is for architect Maitri, but again, Mr. Udit, Sapna, ma'am, please feel free to put in your points for this question as well. Large glazed openings and transparent surfaces help interiors feel very visually connected to nature and daylight, but they also introduce certain challenges around heat, glare, and acoustics. So, how do you balance openness with performance in contemporary interiors?
So balancing openness and performance is very, very crucial. Initially, in olden days, they used to use shading devices. Like, for example, they had chajjas and boxing, which would help cut down the amount of sunlight entering the home. This is still a practice which is being used, but nowadays it has evolved a lot. Where you have even high performance facades. People are using kinetic systems and parametric systems to help support the amount of light entering into the building. And also glass itself has evolved over time, and there are a lot of new technologies which have come in, like you have smart glazing, you have low e glazing. People are using tinted glasses to control the amount of sunlight entering into the building. And it helps to reduce the heat gain when you're using all these glasses. You can even make the glass frosted now. So you have multiple options to play around with glass itself. And another thing about acoustics is glass itself acts like a primary barrier, which helps you to cut down some amount of sound transmission. But then, if you're looking to cut down for a space which has to be acoustically designed, you can go ahead with double glazed glass. You can even experiment with glasses with asymmetric thickness, where you have like two different varying thickness when you're using a double glaze system. So the sound barrier is increased a lot. You even get these systems where you have low E glasses, which will help to reduce the amount of sunlight coming into the building. And you can even have different strategy placements where you orient your building towards north south, how we follow in architecture. You have more openings towards the east and west, and you use more of northern lighting and eastern lighting, and you reduce the openings on the south and west side of the building. These are just passive strategies which you can apply while designing buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, very rightly said. No doubt about it. I think we are moving towards what's called sensitive transparency with glass. But, it's like spaces being visually open, connected, but we still wanted sensitive transparency building that we talk about all the time.
I guess Architect Maitri has already mentioned a lot of points that glass inherently it's not actually performance and both openness is actually not on the different sides of it. It's on the same side of it. Over a period of time, glass has evolved. We have low E glasses, and we have work around this where we can make. See, as on today, glass is actually used to cut down a lot of energy wastage in the buildings. As she was also talking about now, there's a whole lot of glass science which works around that, how a particular kind of a glass we can design which can cut down, let's say, infrared rays which comes from which will produce the heat rays, or you can say acoustics. There's a science about acoustics, how we cut down the acoustics. Then you use lamination, then you use various glazing combinations, and in fact even UV rays, right? So a lot of science goes behind this, and ultimately what it leads to in a larger building campus, again, openness leads to your consumption of less consumption of electricity on the light. And then even when you cut down these infrared rays and other things, it also cuts down your AC consumption, right? So overall today, glass as a material has evolved to that stage that this is not about openness and performance. Both are going hand in hand. In fact, I'll take this and give an example. Saint-Gobain has a glass known as Sage Glass. We have done some projects across the globe on this, but one of a very major project we have done in Google Ananta, Bangalore recently, where the glass is actually going to change its tint over a period of day basis the sunlight which is falling on it. So that keeps the balance of how much light and heat you want to let it go inside, so that it gives that openness, but at the same time it's also going to control your overall electricity consumption inside the building. So making it really more efficient in terms of the entire building space energy management. So I believe this openness and efficiency is going hand in hand with this with the material we have in hand, that's glass.
Yes, very, very well explained. It is so important to understand the material that you're choosing, and sometimes in actual execution, materials often reveal nuances that go far beyond what is seen in renders or mood boards. Sapna ma'am, while working with glass and reflective surfaces, what are some important detailing, coordination, or planning considerations that designers should be more mindful of to ensure that both performance and experience come together successfully on site?
I think you very rightly said that one of the biggest misconception in design is that if something really looks beautiful in renders, it will automatically kind of translate perfect on site. You just said that very correctly. In reality, I think material, especially the glass and reflective surfaces, they behave very differently when we are into actual execution. Glass would demand a high level of detailing precision. It will require coordination between designer, contractor, the vendor, the lighting consultant, the site teams. Even a small misalignment, I think incorrect joint detail, maybe poor edge finishing, maybe just improper lighting placement. It becomes highly visible because it's reflective and it just amplifies the imperfections also. So I think it's a very important aspect to understand that the performance along with the aesthetics. So when we talk about putting glass or any other reflective surfaces, I think we also need to think about the maintenance accessibilities. We need to think about fingerprints. We need to think about glare control, safety standards, which I'm sure a lot of glass companies have taken care of already. Acoustic impacts, they're coming up with acoustic impact classes also, thermal behaviors, long-term durability, and it's not just about visual appearances. So I think what I feel is that good interiors is not just through creativity, it is actually through execution and coordination. So when glass companies step in and give the right guidance at the right stage, that I think helps getting the site executed well.
True, ma'am. Thank you. My next question is for all of y'all. So, the World Interiors Day theme this year speaks about balancing nature, culture, and technology.
Yeah.
So, in contemporary interiors today, how do you see materials help preserve cultural identity while still feeling modern and future ready?
I think modern design just does not mean disconnecting from the roots. It's in fact like creating a more meaningful space, which is often a reinterpretation of our local culture, maybe our local craftsmanship, local textures. It's all about that storytelling, but in a modern language. I think technology should never, erase our cultural identity. Rather, it should enhance the human experience, just make the storytelling a little easier. Every house has its story, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Very rightly said, ma'am. Very rightly put. It is very important for us to have our culture rooted, but also have modern design come into play because we're moving. As a we've come to 21st century and we're heading towards a technological advanced world. So it's very important to integrate technology, but also have our cultural roots. It's very rightly put. Yeah.
I guess Miss Sapna has given a great and basic context on this. On the material side of it, a lot of our systems and in fact glasses are also with time people have started asking for products which has which looks more traditional or contemporary, I would say. And I would give some examples like when we were doing a project where the glass was used with the fabric inside, instead of a normal PVB, so it gives you that kind of a fabric feeling. In fact, some of the lamination layers which we're using these days are also very contemporary earthy colors. That are the bronze finish and all those things. And in fact, even the systems they're using around it. So we use a lot of systems to bind the glass with the overall system, whether that is the partition system or the railing system or any other system for that matter, which use in interiors. A lot of these systems also is available in a lot of finishes, which people are now tend to ask more in this traditional color pattern. Whether I would say a lot of these earthy colors, or a lot of these people ask for colors related to a lot of wooden laminates or a lot of wood printed. So yeah, there is a way for us to go back and try to make users feel more connected with nature. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
I think it's great if companies like yours can create spaces which are really globally relevant, but somehow I feel they should also be emotionally rooted.
So as you said, for example, I told you have those sandwich fabric panel glasses which you're using. So yeah, it helps to even connect to culture and tradition where you're using locally hand done upholstery work and traditionally for example, cane, for example. So it's very difficult to maintain cane. And then when you sandwich it with glass, it becomes easier to maintain. It will not catch stains. It's easy to clean. So you're bringing in culture with modern technology and using glass as a material. So it's basically blending in a lot of modern things with cultural elements, which help the design to get elevate the design to the next level. Yes.
Yes. And another aspect that I want to bring in is sustainability and long-term performance. They're becoming very increasingly important in interiors today. So, Mr. Udit, how is glass evolving not just as a high-performance material within spaces, but also as a more sustainable material across its manufacturing life cycle and recyclability?
See, one thing is that glass itself, as a process for manufacturing, use a product known as cullets during its manufacturing, which itself is, is what you call the waste glass, what we get from the market. So one, it itself has a lot of recycling component to it while making the new glasses. Secondly, from the recyclability point of view, this entire system now, we are designing these glasses now as a low carbon glasses. Okay, at Saint-Gobain, we ourselves are signatory of net carbon zero pledge, and then by 2050 is our target by when we want to get into the net carbon zero is this thing. So one, on specifically on the product side of it, we have a recycling. Second, we are getting into this low carbon glasses and trying to market that well in the market, this thing. And second, from the process manufacturing process point of view, one, it's not only about glass, there's far more additional processes around it. So one of the largest plant we have there in Shilpamudur, Chennai, we don't even take the water supply. This is entirely recycled there, right? So most of our large plants are highly, you would say, efficient in terms of sustainability. We try to give back to the environment as much as we take it from the environment. And a lot of places, even we're trying to produce electricity on our own by through solar means and other means, and water is stored, right? So the overall process is highly sustainable. Okay, and in fact, we have been provided a lot of badges of awards by various government organizations on that. So and but it's a work in progress. We may want to we want to get into this net carbon zero much before 2050, maybe 2045, or we want to become net carbon negative, not even neutral. So and for a manufacturing company like us, which has manufacturing plants across the nation and which are consuming energy, because I'm sure you understand that while making glass, we have to take the furnace to about 1800 degrees centigrade and runs continuously. So we burn a lot of energy, but we are trying to compensate it with all our processes, and that's a work in progress. But globally, we are inclined towards it, and we'll achieve it.
Udit ji, when I was, I think, in class 8, तब मैंने पढ़ा था कि glass is like दही, खट्टा लगा दो बन जाता है. So that's exactly what you said right now.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Udit, for explaining that so well. Architect Maitri, my next question is for you. As a young architect leading your own practice, what has been one of the biggest realities or lessons that you've learned about managing people, managing clients, and creative expectations?
So the biggest lesson I have learned is to manage the client's expectations. So sometimes the client has some design and vision for their dream project in mind, and it may not always align with the reality and the feasibility and practicality of it. So it's very you need to find a sweet spot where you're giving the client what they want, but then you know that it has to be practically be executed at site. And another thing is that you need to educate the clients first, because they're really unaware of the entire process, how it works, the timeline, the budgeting, and all the coordination, because it's a new project for them also, and they're not aware of how these systems and processes work. So you need to educate them. And it's always a good thing to always keep the client involved throughout the process, so that they are on board with all the design decisions and discussions that we make. And the biggest key to this is clear communication between all the different stakeholders of the project. Because if one thing goes wrong, one person is not delivering on time, the entire project can be delayed, which add on to additional costs, and then the budgeting goes up. So you need to make sure that all of these things are in place. And regarding the team, it's very important that you empower your team, and you make them take responsibility and ownership. They should feel that this is their project, so they put in the 100% effort to make the client's dream project. And also another thing is that it helps to foster like a collaborative environment where everyone finds it easy to work and everyone shares responsibilities equally.
Following that conversation, Sapna ma'am, Interior design is often perceived as a glamorous profession, but the reality involves intense coordination, communication, and problem solving. So, what are some professional or interpersonal skills that young designers must develop early on in their careers?
So to take it lightly, I think interior designer seems and appears to be very glamorous from outside. When we are sitting in a webinar like this, we're all decked up, but when we go to site, we're all in sports shoes. So I mean, it's a very demanding, multidisciplinary profession. As designers, we're just not creative. We also need to understand the psychology of the client. We have to have the technical knowledge. Imagine what Udit is saying, all that we need to know. And the client expects us to know everything about it. So, and this is just one part, glass. And there are 1 million products to know. So are the technical specifications. So we are Google literally for the clients. We need to know the budgets, the timelines. We need to know the right vendors. We need to know the labor terms and contracts. We need to know and understand how to read them. And then there are moments when client is very emotional. We need to also balance that. So often everything is happening at the same time. There is accounts and there is teams and everything. So we are literally juggling. That means we learn to juggle one thing and then we juggle 100 things at one time. So that's interior designing as a profession. It's not just about creativity alone. But I think there is so much good part about it also that as designers, we tend to make somebody's home. It's like genuinely making their dream houses, their dreams seem to come to reality. The journey that we live with them during that whole time is just something which can't be explained even in words. It's so beautiful to feel. Yeah, that's what I think is all about interior designing.
True, ma'am, true. Mr. Udit, architect Maitri had also mentioned about how glass had long been associated with fragility, but today that perception is fundamentally changing with so many innovations that are coming up. Even you had mentioned so many. Saint-Gobain has Securate toughened glass and Stardip laminated glass. So, how do you see these advancements redefining glass as a structural, safety-driven material in contemporary architecture and interiors?
See, over a period of time, I'm sure all of us have noticed that glass has, initially it was probably a fragile material, but with time, with a lot of process came into the picture. Now the perception has entirely changed, right? I spoke earlier about we toughen the glass or we laminate the glass, and there are various kind of processes, but that's on the process side of it. At the application side of it, now we are using frameless glass railing system for meters and meters. We have done a project about 100 meters running, frameless glass railing system, right? We have done a project for a very large corporate house for about 1.5-meter railing that is without any vertical support, entirely on the glass, and that's a commercial space with the wind load into the picture, right? So that speak about where the glass has gone today, from being looked as a fragile material. So now how it is actually looked at. What's the kind of technology has came into the picture? Even in interiors now, traditionally we used to make 2.1, 2.4 kind of a meter height partition, but now people are going for 3.5, 3.8, 4-meter height partition, double height partitions, right? So that is only feasible over a period of time because glass itself has evolved, right? There are processes around glass. There's a processes around toughening, lamination. In fact, Miss Maitri mentioned earlier even about curved glass. Initially people didn't really used to be comfortable on curved glass because they thought it will never be able to toughen in that place. But now even with that, the technology has advanced, and even those has become better and better. And it's going to keep on becoming better, right? Because glass itself has a capability to become one of the premium metal element because of the transparency and openness it offers. But because of that fragile nature, there's still some apprehensions. But over a period of time, I guess users have understood. They have started understanding that how safe it is, and it's an ever growing journey. I believe there's only upward journey for glass from.
Yeah, I think how Udit has said, I think that's what makes us more confident to use glass in both architecture and interiors because it's always innovating. There are systems coming in. So
Hmm.
it just keeps contributing more to aesthetics.
Yeah. Yes,
True.
yes.
Thank you, Sarma. So we're almost towards the end of the webinar. So this question is for all of you. As we move towards India 2047, what do you hope future interior spaces will prioritize more consciously, emotionally, culturally, technologically, or environmentally?
I think it should become a little more human centric. I think it's not about having the right design or the most Instagrammable design. It's more about the mental health, about uh, human connections, about respecting the environment, about preserving the individuality. I think I just hope it becomes a little more human centric. The way the world is moving, it's somehow people are becoming in a group, they are becoming lonely. So they are on Facebook, but they have 3,000 friends, but they're lonely. So I just hope that the whole interior contributes to becoming a little more humanizing the humans.
Agreed to whatever you're saying, ma'am. It's very important that we have human-centric designs. Adding on to the points that you said, I feel even technological integration into the designs, like having smart home solutions and having comfort, uh, feasibility for the client, all of this will also add on to how 2047 designs will evolve. And also using a lot of sustainable materials, now people are realizing the impact that materials are having on the environment and the carbon emissions, so people are making conscious choices. And another thing is cultural identity. A lot of people are choosing to use locally available materials, local craftsmanship, and all of this has been included a lot in design. You see all these things coming back into trend, like Kota stone, cane. So a lot of people are choosing these options to make sure that they feel that they are at home. So that is another element which I see being used often.
I totally agree. I think it's not just about leaving the culture in actual, but it's also about leaving the culture in our mind. So just be
Yes.
rooted to the culture. That's so important. And you so rightly said that, Maitri.
Yeah. And I think another thing which will be a trend is home automation, smart solutions like making the home completely smart, like at the touch of your finger, you will have everything. And people are looking for that as a design element now. So that will also become uh, it will become a norm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And ask us who are the mothers of 20. So at the touch of a finger, you can have everything. So
Yes.
I can ask my son anything under the sky, and he has everything on the touch of a button.
Largely, I guess, yes, the spaces have to largely become more human centric. I guess architects like Miss Sapna and Miss Maitri are, one of the pillars who are actually trying to shift those workplaces to that side, what industry also needs and users also need. And that is the most more core point of where this workplace thing is going. Another thing is that sustainability, our way of also another way of looking at that is a lot of sustainability is coming into the picture and has to come into the picture. We are seeing a lot of supply side challenges happening, every decade or every few years, and which is giving some hit to some of the other material supplies, right? So sustainability and how we can, more you can say, more dependent on our own resources rather than, too open to outside shocks. So that is also one of the things which is very important. In fact, a lot of places now have a lot of compliance around how much work we can do it at the site. A lot of prefabrication is required. Labor is also getting expensive day by day, and a lot of certifications like EPD certifications, a lot of these things. So that's also one more thing where we see, and not exactly the residential, but maybe commercial spaces will gradually get into that, and that is also one more area where we see that this will go eventually.
To that, I think it's more not about just consuming. It's more about not constantly disposing and thoughtfully consuming, I think.
Yeah.
True, true. Thank you. I'm sure the audience is having wonderful points as takeaways from this webinars. So before we wrap up today's sessions, let's end on a quick reflective note. Since today has been all about how glass and interiors shape experience, perception, and everyday living, let's close with a rapid 3, 2, 1 round. So it'll be short, instinctive, and personal. Just your design thinking in a distilled form. So my first set of questions is for architect Maitri. Ma'am, 3 words that define how you think interiors of the future should feel.
It should have cultural identity. It should be sustainable, and I think it should be based on user experience.
Okay.
Okay.
2 materials or elements you think will most shape spatial experience going forward.
I think sustainable materials, use of lot of sustainable materials, and consciously choosing what you're putting into your home and not harming the environment. That is very important. And another thing is smart technology because we're evolving. We have AI and we have a lot of advancement in technology. So smart home solutions will be one of the things. Yeah.
Okay. One principle you always return to when designing meaningful spaces.
So I prefer using seamless and harmless integration between traditional, uh, culturally rooted elements along with modern design. So, and it has to be aligned with the user. The user should be comfortable and they should feel homely in that place. They should feel mentally stable. And it's a place you come back to after you've been out for so many hours. You need to come back to a safe space, and a home is a safe space for them. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. My next set of questions are for Miss Sapna. Ma'am, 3 things that you believe clients most often underestimate when designing interiors.
I think the importance of systems and planning before execution, because it's not about creativity, it's also about the systems that will make it happen. As first, then the how much the light affects emotional experiences, because lights are generally considered like just lighting. Third, I think, is the long-term impact of material maintenance and the functionality, because without maintenance, everything falls.
True, very true, ma'am. Okay. 2 elements, any material, system, or ideas that are most transforming interiors today.
I think it's more about intel it's more about layered surfaces. It's more about intelligent material integration and not just about one material. It's more about how we play with our palette, not just use one thing. And second, I think, is, as I've said earlier, also a human-centric design focus, which is mostly on well-being and, as Udit ji had said, flexibility.
Okay. One piece of advice you would give to someone designing their first real home or space.
I think design for the life you want to live in, not for temporary trends or social media validation. It should be a space that should support your routine, your emotions, your comfort, your growth, and not just a display piece.
Wonderful. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Udit, my last set of questions is for you. 3 words that best describe where glass in interiors is headed.
I would say adaptive. A lot of places are moving around and how we want to make it more friendly for the new users. So for the Gen Z specifically, so it has to be adaptive. Again, the glass system has to be very performative. We spoke about a lot of performance systems, and then it has to integrate with the larger picture. What interior designer or an interior contractor are trying to do largely. The glass and the system has to integrate with the entire thing.
2 innovations or applications in glass that excite you most right now.
I believe a very exciting one is this when the acoustic is getting blending with the glass. Okay, this technology have started coming in and people have started using it both for interior and for the facade application. And that is where I believe a lot of spaces have become far more acoustically comfortable, right? Initially, there was a lot of pushback to use glass system because people are using dry walls or the concrete walls because they want acoustic comfort. But that as the glass is growing and we are getting far more sophisticated material to be used to make it more acoustically comfortable, that is one place where we see the lot of advancement is happening. Second, glass is getting used a lot as a digital platform also. We are seeing in automobiles more of, and now it's starting here, getting into these offices also. And I believe a lot of, for example, you are using aluminum portals, we call it box sections, next to the doors, or in a cabins, right, where you typically hang your iPads or something for a meeting room schedule or something like that. All those things are gradually getting into material of glass and with a lot of digital outlook into it. So those are the new things which are coming into it, and we are really excited about this.
That's great. One mindset shift that designers should adopt while working with glass.
Not all designers, I believe gradually most of people have understood that glass is not a filler, right? It has a lot of functionality into it, right? A lot of functional things can happen. I spoke about acoustics, I spoke about aesthetics, I spoke about digital, I spoke about, cutting down various kind of infrared or ultraviolet rays. All those things glass today has a capability to achieve, at the same time being a very sustainable material. So I believe, if industry looks at it more holistically, it will be useful for the entire industry, not only for us, but for the entire industry.
Thank you so much, sir. And with that reflective round, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you, Architect Maitri Shah, Ms. Sapna Aggarwal, and Mr. Udit Sood for such an insightful and layered conversation. Across today's discussion, what clearly emerged is how interiors are no longer shaped by isolated design choices, but by the integration of materials, system, and human experience. Glass, in particular, stood out as a material that goes beyond transparency, actively shaping light, comfort, privacy, and spatial perception. We have also explored how its role has evolved from a traditional architectural element to a performance driven and experience led system, influencing the way spaces are designed and experienced today. On behalf of Glass Academy and Ethos Empowers, thank you once again for your time and for sharing your insights so generously. And to our audience, thank you for joining us and engaging throughout the session. We hope you're leaving with fresh perspectives on how materials like glass shape the way we experience interiors. Stay connected with us on Instagram and LinkedIn for updates, insights, and upcoming sessions. See you all at the next webinar. Thank you.